Here we go. Try again. Okay, I am with two of the athletes that I was able to highlight in the book, Training Athletes Beyond the Game, Ashton and Lacey, who were two of our favorites. I've actually pulled on their coach. Jamie and I coached together when we did track, and Jamie did the girls. And so excited to have both of them on today to talk a little bit about their experience. I was honored to coach them. They're two of our favorites. You're not supposed to have favorites, but that's not true. We know as coaches. And so because of the way they showed heart. And so they're in the chapter in the book that's titled Heart, Training the Heart of Your Athletes. Fortunately for me with these two, that's a lot of training I had to do. They both had it, but they're going to talk a little bit about their experience playing. And so we're going to start with Ashton, since she's up and me in my top left. So Ashton, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience and just about what's going on with you now.
All right. So I ran track all 4 years of high school. It was one of the main things that got me through high school because parts of high school were not super fun, but I loved the family atmosphere that we had with Coach Simpson's, and all of the different people that we had on the team. It was just a great time, and we all loved each other dearly. A lot of fun, but part of my track journey included injuries. I ended up having a lateral release surgery on my left knee when I was a sophomore, which was probably one of the hardest rehabilitations I've ever had to do, as well as a mental stressor getting through the 8 months I believe I had of physical therapy and everything, and like learning how to run again. But luckily came back out on top. I still am active, which is great to this day, which it's been 10 years since I graduated high school now, which is crazy. And then besides just that injury, running my heart out constantly to the point of getting sick a lot, which Coach Jamie can definitely attest to. But I mean, it was a great time. I enjoyed it. It taught me a lot of perseverance. With track, it taught me a lot of just mental strength in terms of being an athlete and learning all about just what it entails to have to put yourself past what is necessary sometimes to do what for your team, whether it's a relay or for yourself, if that's just a mental goal that you need to pass. For me, coming back after surgery, sometimes it was a little hard just to even get sixth in a race, but just finishing sometimes was what I needed to do. And so, but eventually got pretty normal, but definitely love my time. And I'm still active to this day. I live in Auburn, Alabama with my husband. We have a little girl on the way in August, and so yeah, great time.
Jamie would have probably wrote that chapter way better than me, so I'll let her talk a little bit about getting to coach you. I know you were one of her favorites, and so let her talk a little bit about it and see if she's got any questions she wants to throw out at you for just your time while you were running.
Yeah. Well, I just remember, I didn't know you very well when you first came out the first day of practice, and I remember the first day you puked your toes up, and then the next day, and then the next day, and as track coaches, that usually happens to athletes on, the first week, but then the second week rolls around and you kept throwing up, and I thought, why is she still so out of shape? And then I realized one day I got a stopwatch out and I timed your practice runs, and I realized that you were running meet times in practice. And I thought, this kid is just leaving it all in the track in practice. And that's hard to do. I was a track runner, and I know I probably didn't do that. And so that right there made me love you the most right off the bat, because I thought, this kid, oh my goodness, I just love her. And so that was one thing that stood out to me, I think, the most about you, Ashton, is that you just always gave it 128,000%. And especially after your surgery, I remember that was really hard for you to come back. And mental toughness is important. I think that's, and you definitely overcame it. So
you're getting her all emotional over here.
So.
But Ashton, we were proud of you. I was proud to put you in the book. We're going to come back to you here in a little bit and talk about some of the other parts here. We're going to go ahead and bring our next guest into the fold here. So our next one we have is Miss Lacey, which you knew her as Lacey Smith, and that's changed because you guys grow up after you leave us. This tends to happen. But Lacey, I talked a lot in the book about how you had to deal with asthma. I know you had probably other things you were dealing with because, you know, there was a lot of y'all out there. And so we're going to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your experience. But I remember the first 2 or 3 times to me, you would come out and we were nervous you weren't going to make it. A lot of kids, it's tough. And it was really tough for you. And I remember a lot of conversations with Jamie of, I don't think she's going to, I don't know if she's going to be able to pull through this. This takes a lot of mental toughness, a lot of heart. We were so proud of what you did. And of course, you and Ashton both went on to not only be pretty good athletes, but we were inspired by the fact that you persevered through. So why don't you talk a little bit about your experience at track, and then we'll chime in on what she remembers as well.
Well, I think to start off, it's such an honor to be able to talk about this with Ashton too, because I feel like through her strength and she was such an example, I think, to me as a friend and as a teammate. Ashton was at ACA longer than I was, and she already had her friend group, and I started as a freshman at ACA, and it was just kind of like, as a new kid, you just want to find your niche. You want to find where you belong. Growing up, when I was a child, I was a gymnast, but it wasn't until I think I may have been like 11 when I stopped doing gymnastics, but I always stayed active. I felt like that was a good foundation for really anything I tried to do. But I remember when I started, I joined the cheer squad, which was fun for me. I think with a gymnastics background, there was a lot that kind of went hand in hand. However, I really struggled feeling wanted and feeling welcomed and feeling a part of that little family. And I don't even remember what it was. It may have been Ashton. It may have been, I've always enjoyed sprinting. I've never been much of a long distance runner because of the asthma. Gymnastics, I think, allowed me to have like I had a little taste of it. So I figured I'd at least try it out. So one of the main things that I feel like I remember most is y'all created this team, and it felt like a team. It felt like a family. I felt from the beginning, from the getting into it and all the way to graduation, I felt like y'all pushed me to be my best. Y'all believed in me when I felt like I couldn't, or I felt like y'all believed in me when I felt like I couldn't continue. But y'all did it in such a way that I always felt good enough. Like I never didn't feel like I could measure up. I never felt like I wasn't going to be good enough. So that's one of the biggest things. I was pushed to be the best I could be, but at the same time still feeling like I was good enough. So that I feel like has been so good for me into adulthood, to be able to challenge people in leadership positions that I'm in now, and as a mom, and just friends, and even myself, to challenge to be better, to challenge to push through hard times. Even when the asthma was real, it was something that I would push as much as I could, and I would feel like I couldn't breathe. So even now as an adult, I prefer the quick sprints as far as exercising, but still staying active. I went out and ran down a dirt road the other day, and I go back to a lot of y'all's coaching, even from that childhood in my head, and just reteaching myself how to breathe and how to finish, regardless of how hard it is, just to continue making myself better and finish, regardless of where I'm at in the middle. I feel like there was more I was wanting to say, but I think it was just more so, it was just that it's resonated so deeply in my brain that you can push somebody to be better, and you can have big goals for somebody that they may not see for themselves, but at the same time still make them feel like they're good enough, that they still can measure up, and that they're not a failure. And I feel like y'all did a really good job of that.
Well, probably a lot of that was the lady next to me, so I'll let her talk a little bit about that story. I tended to be a little bit tougher
But that's a big part of it too.
That's good. So I'll let her talk a little bit about her experience with you, Lacey, and then I want to come back to something you said about how it impacts you now, and give Ashton a chance to talk to that as well, about how hopefully sports are moving beyond just your little time we had together and have life lessons. So I'll let Jamie talk a little bit about her experience with you, and then Ashton, get ready because we're going to put you on the hot seat.
Well, we've coached a lot of kids along the way, and sometimes I don't remember the beginning of each of them. I remember, in the middle or at the end, but with you, Lacey, I remember the very first time I saw you. We had done a car wash to support for a fundraiser at the track meet, and you had been homeschooled. Is that correct? I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew you were new to the school, and all we had heard was this new girl's coming and she wants to be on the track team. And so I remember your mom had pulled up in the van and the door slid open and you bebopped out of the van like the happiest kid in the world. And I remember thinking, my goodness, look at her confidence, because I know as a new person anywhere I would have been shy, but you jumped right in and you just started talking to everybody. And to this day, you're still one of the friendliest people on the planet, I'm pretty sure. And so you made a big impact on me, like from the beginning, that I just knew this kid is somebody that I want to be around. And then when we got into the actual training and the workouts, early on, first couple of weeks are always hard for everybody. And you kept going, and you were right. I do remember those conversations because we knew you were capable, but I knew that you were afraid because you couldn't breathe. And so as a coach, you were probably the first one I had to deal with about asthma to that severity. And I remember thinking, well, I've got to learn everything I can learn. So I know to just not push her about, come on, get through it. You're just in shape. This kid can't breathe. Her lungs are closing up. So we had to kind of together balance of, now, Lacey, get in your head and know, are you really going to die because you're just hurting? Or are you really going to die because your lungs are, closing?
Right.
So yeah. I remember that was a long process, but I loved getting to work through it with you. And I loved seeing you come through it on the other side of it. And you were strong sprinter, I remember. And you were a hurdler, and that's hard. That's a hurdler. You have to be mentally tough to begin with. I tried that once in my career, and I tripped and fell and never got back up. And I'm sure there were numerous times that you fell, but you just always bounced back, and it just is something to be proud of. And your example of obviously your ethic of work ethic, but your morality and your peppiness, and you just inspired so many people around you. And that's something that I was always proud of you about.
Yeah, I think the word that comes to my mind for both of you, and we're going to kind of move to another part of this, is genuine. You both were who you were. Lacey, you were peppy and go get it. And I thought that was an act until you kept doing it over. And I realized, no, she just really is that way. So, and Ashton was always more serious and more as a structure. And she was a coach on the track. That was who she was, and spoke her mind, and no problem. But be who you are. I thought that spoke tremendously to your heart. Both of you were who you were, and you were unashamed of that. At least I thought that was a big deal. Here's how life is funny. Our daughter is now the age you two were when you started for us, and I'm coaching her in track, and I would love to see her grow up to be 10 years from now, conversation going on. And so that's kind of where we're going to move here. And Lacey's already spoke a little bit to it. Ashton, we'll move to you, and we'll come back to Lacey about how did your experience in sports, and it could be track, it could be something else. It doesn't have to be something directly with this, impact you later on in life.
Well, and especially now that I'm pregnant with our first child, our daughter, I can strongly say that I have already said she is going to play sports, because I feel like it is so important to your character to learn how to work on a team versus, and everybody says, oh yes, track, like you do individual events, but I'm like, yes, you're working together though. And then, I worked with Lacey on the 4x1 relay. I did the 4x4 relay. I did relay meets. So, there are definitely going to be times where you're working all together. And then of course you work together to get those points as a team. But I just think it builds character to have to work with all the different personalities and to work with people that you may not spend a lot of time with in high school or outside, if it's a club team, if it's outside of school. I think it just speaks a lot to who you are as a person if you play on a sports team, and just like makes you just a well-rounded individual. It also shows you walks of life that you might not have encountered otherwise. So I feel like it's a very, very important aspect. I hope she wants to run track, but maybe she won't be as fast. Maybe she'll be more of a tennis or some other type of sport. But I just feel like that's so crucial to developing your character, especially in those teenage years when hormones are crazy and you may not have a, kind of like what Lacey said, you're trying to find that niche, you're trying to find that place where you fit in. And I feel like that track for me, I did play multiple different sports, but then in the end, after I did have my injury, I did just exclusively stick with track because that was where my heart was. That was where you guys were. That was where my teammates that I had grown to love dearly were at. So I stuck with track exclusively after my injury, even though they said that would be hard on my knee. And I was like, okay, cool. That sounds good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And Lacey, we're going to throw it to you, Ashton. That's great. I think that's the things you talk about, especially with what's going on like right now, literally right now, talking about diversity and culture and learning to get together. There's so many things that pull us apart. And I think sports are one of the few areas that do bring us together. I think you hit on that and did a great job with it. And Lacey, we're going to kick it to you and talk about, what are some things you mentioned a few earlier, but some things that maybe you pulled from that experience that have helped you now that you're, a mom and you're now, not you are a young lady, you're still young to us, but you are a woman now, and so what are some things that maybe you learned that you can take with you?
And okay, I 100% agree with Ashton. I feel like the team is just like this foundation of teamwork that allows you to not just see yourself and the goal you're reaching for. Like you're able in the relays, you're able to see like you don't win if you all aren't doing your best. And so you've got to encourage each other to do your best. And it's a team effort. And even when you're doing individual your individual events, like Ashton said, ultimately we're trying to win as a team, everybody. So if you can step along each person, you step away from yourself and cheer each other along. I also found that when I would focus on my next event so much, I would get like sick at my stomach just with the nerves. But if I was able to run along the side of the track and find each different event and what was going on, like I was able to cheer those people on, it relieved some of my nerves for myself. And so I feel like that can be used in life now. Like if you step out of yourself, you get out of your anxieties, you get out of your head and you look at what these other people are facing. Like, this person over here is high jumping. They've got this obstacle they've got to get over. Like, let me go cheer them on. And it just kind of got me out of my head for what I was about to do next and calmed my nerves. So I feel like that can be transitioned into life. Like if you focus on other people and you encourage those other people, you can get out of your head and get out of your anxiousness. And I don't know, I just feel like when you turn your attention towards helping somebody else get where they want to be, it ultimately helps you out. But I think as far as that goes, I feel like it gave me a foundation of a fitness in a way to have a sport in my background. I agree with Ashton. I want to encourage Ella Hartley, my little girl, to have any kind of sport, some kind of team effort, but some type of something to keep her active so that when she is an adult, she has a foundation. Because I have lots of friends who don't have foundations of exercise. And I actually have a specific friend that comes to mind who struggles with asthma as an adult. And so she really struggles with exercise. And so I'm able to use some of the same experiences that I went through to be able to identify and help overcome those things, even as an adult, trying to help adult friends get fit and get healthy and love themselves. So I feel like it's fed so much positivity even into my career, my home, as a wife, as a mom, and it's just good things.
Yeah. No, that was perfect. And I think you hit the nail on the head, encouraging others, sometimes getting out of yourself. I think that's exactly what sports are about. It's working together. So, and both of you talked about that. And what's funny is track is considered to be the most individual sport, but both of you mentioned how the team aspect made it great. And so, all right, the last thing we're going to talk about with you two, and we'll go to Ashton first, and then we'll come to Lacey, is going to be, if a lot of coaches are going to hopefully buy this book and go through and figure out different ways to encourage their athletes beyond the game, to where they're an old coach like me talking to their former athletes down the road. So if you could tell them something that would say, hey, look, when you're working with your athletes, this is what I would give you for advice on training the heart of them, on encouraging them, on being with them beyond just the limited time we have together. What are some things you would tell them to do?
The first thing that comes to mind, especially with the two of you, is I had a personal relationship, not like in a weird way, but like I felt I trusted you guys, and you both, if I were doing something, maybe not giving my 120,000%, like you said, like if I was having an off day, you would come up and be like, talk to me, what's going on? What can I do to help? And so having that personal relationship, instead of feeling intimidated, I mean, you definitely had your intimidating moments, don't get me wrong, but actually feeling like scared for for how we felt, whether if it was a hard day at school, whether if it was we were getting over an illness, whatever the circumstances might have been, just having that personal relationship was really great. And I think that's very special. I don't know if all coaches and athletes can say 10 years later that they would feel this strongly about it. So I think that that's very special. So if they can find that, but specifically talking to an athlete, and what motivates me is finding whatever that drive is, find out what motivates that athlete, whether that is getting that new PR for that race, or whether that's just overcoming an obstacle that week of, like Lacey was mentioning, high jump. Maybe it's just getting an extra inch on that high jump. Like find out what drives that athlete. And so for me, having the injury really motivated me. I think you guys knew that. So even if it was just get on my 400, I think the first time I ran the 400 after my injury, I ran like a 76-second 400. It was embarrassing. So it was more of just like, and I remember Jamie to this day was like, okay, next time get 5 seconds off of that. Next time just try to do this. So just, even if it's small milestones, just figuring out what is going to motivate that athlete to get them to their best potential.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ashton. And you get Jamie all teared up over here, so I'll be able to talk. But no, that was, and that to us is we don't leave you because we're going, but we stopped the recording over to Lacey here in a minute. But is something that stuck out to us is that goal-driven. You were a goal-driven athlete, and once Jamie figured that out, she knew which buttons to push to motivate you. And you talked about that. You had a level of trust with her, and then she knew what motivated you, which was different than what motivated the next person we're going to talk to. Ms. Lacey was motivated, I thought, differently, more in the encouraging was more her style, where you were more of a data-driven young lady. And so Jamie figured that out and was able to motivate both of you in that vein. And Ashton, we may come back to you to say goodbye. But Lacey, we're going to move to you with the same question. What would you tell a coach that, hey, if you're trying to work with an athlete, here's some words of advice from an athlete's perspective now 10 years down the road?
I don't know really if I can top Ashton. That was such a good response. And I feel very strongly in that same way. I think that is so important for a coach to care about the person, care about who that person is. And just like she said, if they're having an off day, like most of the time, it doesn't really have anything to do with the sport itself. Like it has something to do with what had happened at home or what had happened at school that day or something. So I think having a relationship, I agree with that, and in it, like, completely, and caring about that athlete as an individual, just period. And being able to seek, just like y'all said, see my little girl is being kind of crazy. Let me make sure she's okay. It sounded like she was jumping on the bed, but she's not. She's just banging her little legs around. Okay. I think being able to know the individual athletes enough to point out what are their goals, just like that. Hers were very much numbers. I'm so sorry. I think for me, I just wanted to do well. I wanted to do my best. I wanted to make you proud as coaches. I wanted to make my family proud. I just wanted to do well. And so I think, just like I'd mentioned earlier, you guys had the ability to push me and be tough on me and allow me to do better than what I expected of myself, allowed me to be the best that I can. But at the same time, like I was saying earlier, allowed me to feel like I was good enough. Like, not that I was lacking and that I was faulty, and even through my asthma. I think to be intentional in knowing that person and knowing if they do well with a little bit of encouragement and a push, or if they do well with a challenge. I liked a little bit of encouragement and a push, but some people need just a challenge and a goal. So I think being able to know that individual and differentiate, how can I feed them? How can I challenge them best and let them feel like they're good enough already, but that they can be better.
Well spoken, Lacey and Ashton. I'm going to stop the recording, and then before I do that, I wanted to, let Jamie speak to you a little bit. Actually, I'm going to turn it off so she can talk to you guys.